our cells have receptors that need vitamin D in order to function. And so all of this really is about building our bodies up to thrive and repair. And if you're missing certain aspects of cellular health, then our body will misbehave. And as women over 40 in midlife, our body's already trying to misbehave because of our hormonal changes. So we need more than ever to really be strategic and intentional about the nutrients that we give our bodies. With vitamin D, unlike the other vitamin A or vitamin B's or E's or other vitamins, a lot more of the other vitamins you get out of food. You can get vitamin D out of food. However, the most powerful form is from the sun. Unfortunately, today in this world, this time that we're in, we're spending more time inside.
I'm your host, Kim Hines, and welcome to the Emotional Eats podcast. I'm on a mission to show you that what you consume, not just the food, affects your entire life. Midlife is different. Let's dig into the real reasons why you eat when you're not hungry and why you're not feeling well. My guests and I are going to give you doable solutions and help you let go of perfectionism, food rules, and stress to make changes that will last a lifetime. If you're ready to ditch old school diet culture and nourish your entire life, this is the show for you. Welcome to episode 57 of the Emotional Eats podcast. In this episode, I feature Robin Muhammad, who is a great nutritionist, but she's also the founder of Necessary Nutrition. She inspires women to use food and nutrition to build and repair their bodies. She also shares an amazing journey of going from prediabetic, overweight, confused about what to do, to learning about the power of food and nutrition on mental health and physical health. Now she's a certified nutritionist helping women transform their lives. I originally invited Robin on to talk just about vitamin D, but I'm so excited to share some other little tidbits today for midlife women to feel their best mentally and physically. So she does share the importance of vitamin D and why we really need it, but also shares the symptoms of vitamin D deficiency. And ironically, they do overlap with perimenopause symptoms. Robin shares some amazing foods for midlife women that we can eat to feel our best. And she also shares a couple bonus items like some supplements and adaptogens that can help us with symptoms and also stress. So make sure that you listen to the end for Robin's tips, and you can reach out to Robin on Instagram at Nessy Nutri, NESSYNUTRI. She also has an amazing pause plan that she'll talk about at the end of the episode, and you can find that on her website, necessaryvitamind.com. Enjoy the show. Reach out to us and let us know what you think, and make sure to give us a rating and review if you love it. Welcome, Robin. I'm so glad to have you on the Emotional Eats podcast.
Thank you. I love the topic, emotional eats. Yes.
Yes. And actually, everything that we talk about today really kind of ties into emotional eating anyway, because we know when we're not getting what we need in many ways, that it really can help us move into those ways of comforting ourselves. But for the listeners, I want to tell them that I've been following you for quite a while, and I love the information that you share. And something that I've really honed in on is you're really working with menopausal women. And I'd love to know, you have a nice little journey and a background, and I'd love for you to share, what you were doing before you created Nessy Nutrition. You can explain to everyone too, what is Nessy Nutrition? So give us the scoop.
I'm smiling because this is the truth of how it came about. So yes, I am a nutritionist, and it's been 16 years. So prior to that, once upon a time, I was overweight, I was pre-diabetic, but I had no intentions of helping others with their nutrition at all. It was my own journey. And this is the honest story. Like at the time, it's T-Mobile now, but Sprint. Sprint was going to turn off my phone. This I have to just tell you this story. Sprint was going to turn off my phone. I was a professional speaker, so I was traveling around, and in my talks, I talked a lot about the power of nutrition and how it changed my life. At that time, I was not a nutritionist. So I now have gone back to school, but at that time, I wasn't a nutritionist. It was my own journey, just sharing my own journey. People would come up to me after and ask me, would I be their nutrition coach? Would I write a nutrition plan for them? And I thought, no, I'm the speaker. Like I'm not going to do that. And about a year into it, the economy crashed. I lost every single contract that I ever had. And the phone company was going to turn off my cell phone. And I thought, well, I have all these people asking me to be their nutrition coach. Maybe I should try it. And that's really how it got started, honest to goodness. And then I went back to school, and here we are 16 years later. So it really just was, it just happened. And now that I'm in this space, it is a powerful space to be in. It is the highest form of personal development because you get to know so much about the people that you're working with. And something that I did not realize, Kim, that I know when I started off as a nutritionist, I didn't understand the emotional relationship that came along with it. And oftentimes I find that a person will hire a nutritionist without realizing what their true relationship with food is. And a lot of nutritionists are not equipped to handle that level. It's like they just want to talk about food, which is what you come to them for, but there is an emotional component. So being in this space for the past 16 years, I've learned tremendously about the mind, the body, and the spirit, which then allows me to still do my passion, which is speaking. So that's how it happened.
I love that. And that's we move into spaces because of need at the time. Things are God or universe is really changing up
Yeah.
the plan for a reason.
Yes.
And I love that. In fact, I kind of went through a transition where I was teaching high school math, doing the
Uh,
nutrition for me also. I was studying everything for myself. And I just could not stay in the school system anymore.
I understand.
But I am so excited for you because just what you said is so
Mhm.
important, not knowing really when we got into this,
Yeah.
the emotional part of it, because people would come to me and I'd be like, yeah, we don't want to eat sugar and ultra processed foods and don't drink a lot of alcohol and exercise. But
Mhm.
really, it took me a good couple years to really realize when they walked in the door, that's not what they needed
No.
completely. They really needed someone to hold that space and, like you
Yes.
said, figure out their relationship with food.
Figure it
That's
out.
powerful. So we'll
It
talk more. Oh, go ahead. Tell me
no,
about what you feel when you're working with clients now compared to when you started.
and so now I'm more of a resource. I actually do a lot of connecting clients to other resources. We have an academy that does that. But when I learned about what I was capable of doing and then what people really needed, I started bringing in partners. I started bringing in psychotherapists. I started bringing in other people that could support that journey because unlike let's say if a person had an addiction to alcohol or a certain relationship with alcohol, like you don't have to drink alcohol to live. Food is so tricky because you have to eat. You have to eat. So then you're managing a lot trying to figure it out. So it's been a journey. And since that time, again, I love to speak, I love to teach, I love to share. And that is the capacity. My company, we produce vitamin D supplements. So I think we'll talk a lot about vitamin D. And I've just become an expert on the power of vitamin
And
D.
that is why I'm so excited to talk to you because
Yeah.
so many women are hearing that they need to keep their vitamin D levels up, and not everyone's really understanding what that means. So let's start with vitamin D, and we can talk about this in general for
Okay.
everyone, but also really we can drill down to menopausal women over 40 going
Yes.
through their hormonal changes. Why is vitamin D so crucial?
It is crucial because in our cells have receptors that need vitamin D in order to function. And so all of this really is about building our bodies up to thrive and repair. And if you're missing certain aspects of cellular health, then our body will misbehave. And as women over 40 in midlife, our body's already trying to misbehave because of our hormonal changes. So we need more than ever to really be strategic and intentional about the nutrients that we give our bodies. With vitamin D, unlike the other vitamin A or vitamin B's or E's or other vitamins, a lot more of the other vitamins you get out of food. You can get vitamin D out of food. However, the most powerful form is from the sun. Unfortunately, today in this world, this time that we're in, we're spending more time inside. And if you are inside, then you're not outside getting the nutrients or what we need in terms of vitamin D from the sun. And that creates a challenge. Also, if you are a person with darker skin, that also then is prohibiting the vitamin D to do what it needs to do. So why is it important? Again, it's touching a lot of our cells. Vitamin D, we call it vitamin D, but it's actually a hormone. So it does a lot in the body, specifically, not limited to, but we spoke about our cellular health. Then it helps with our immune system. It helps with our insulin. It helps with our heart, our gut, our mood. And then most people know about vitamin D for your bones. And then as women in midlife, as our bones are starting to make themselves known, we need, again, to be very, very strategic and very intentional about the nutrients we put in our bodies. And vitamin D is one of those top vitamins slash hormone for women in midlife.
I love that. And when it's ironic because today
Mm-hmm.
I had a gynecologist appointment. We all know those are so fun.
Yes.
And I one of the first things they asked me is if I've had a bone density test. And
Mm,
I've kind of not really thought about it because I'm in the perfect age range. So I'm 57. And she asked about my vitamin D. I happen to, because I'm a health coach, know my vitamin D level. Most people do not know.
people do not.
But also was talking about, the resistance training with the vitamin D. And
Yeah.
it made me think about that though, that, I'm out in the sun every day. I live in
Mm-hmm.
Florida and we
Mm,
literally can be, exposed in the sun all year long. I walk
yeah.
and run every single day. I walk a couple times a day. And even as someone who is very diligent about taking my supplements, it can drop sometimes if I do not take supplements. So, I have a question for you too about that.
Mm-hmm.
When people ask me as a coach, I'm not qualified to answer this question.
Mm-hmm.
But when people ask you, like, I use, 5,000, 10,000, 4,000, like, do you
Yeah.
have a recommendation for what people could be taking on a daily basis to keep their levels up? And
Absolutely.
my second question is, can we get too much? I've never been able to get too much, but can we?
So I'll answer, can you get too much? Yes, you can. It takes a lot to get too much. It's rare, but it is possible. I'll come back to that. The question people want to know is, well, how much vitamin D should I be taking? Should I supplement? Should I not? I'll answer this in multi layers. The first thing I want to say is from the sun, if you're in the sun 15 minutes a day, that is very, very useful. And fortunately, you live in Florida, and there's people that are listening that are all across the country, and the sun is not as available. My first recommendation is to know what your level is. And I'm going to talk about the range as well. So when you know what your vitamin D levels are or is, then you know how to approach what to do. But people want to know, well, how much should I take without knowing where they are? And if you know where you are, then that informs how you will behave thereafter. So when you're going to the doctor, doctor. Sometimes your provider will not test your vitamin D. It depends on them, you, where you are. Those that are listening, I want to urge you to, or stress upon you to make sure that you are getting that test done, because it's an easy deficiency to have, also an easy one not to have. And low vitamin D can mimic all these other things that we may be trying to rectify when it is a simple vitamin D deficiency. So once you know where you stand, and I'll go through the range, then you know what to do. People come to me and they don't know where they are. So I will recommend mid-level being 2,500 IUs, because I personally take 5,000 IUs, but I know my numbers. I wouldn't arbitrarily recommend 5,000 IUs. It's on the higher side, not the highest, but a higher side when I don't know where you are. 2,500 is mid-level. So if you don't know where you are right now listening and you're saying, okay, I'm not in the sun, I don't know where I am, but you can start off with 2,500 IUs and then figure out where you are. Let's talk the range so that people know what to do based on the range. If your vitamin D levels is beneath 30, so I'm going to keep it simple, beneath 30, then you are deficient. Deficiency means, okay, right, you do not absolutely have enough. If you are 30, you're in the 40s, your doctor is usually going to tell you that you are okay, that you're not deficient. And that is true. You are not deficient. You are at minimum wage. So if you're working and you're making minimum wage, you can pay some bills, I think, right? But maybe not all of them, maybe. So when you are at the lower range of vitamin D, you are not deficient, but is your body performing optimally? Maybe not. Whenever y'all don't know me, you're just listening. And I always want you to do your research. So that is very, very important. The range that I will say is between 60 and 80 is where your body is maximally supported. So when I did not know any better, I was at 40 and I wanted to get my vitamin D level up. So in that case, I was, before taking 2,500 IUs, I wanted to get my vitamin D level up. So that is when I went to 5,000 IUs every day. And your range, it can change for a number of different reasons, and we can get into that if applicable. But I repeat, if you don't know where you are, you start at 2,500 IUs. If you're very, very low, then you can do what's called a mega dose. But otherwise, if you're low and you're really trying to increase, then that's when you would go to the 5,000 IUs a day. Does that make
That
sense?
was a great explanation. And I really appreciate that. I had been up in the 80s and dropped
Mm,
down because I kind of slacked off. You know, there
yeah.
are, it's just supplements. The supplements are supplemental to food,
Correct.
except in this case, because vitamin D isn't like some of the other things that we can get through food. And,
Mm-hmm.
so I did the exact same thing. I used 5,000, got
Mm-hmm.
myself back up to the, 80s again. I'm 82 now, but I've
Mm-hmm.
also, just to share with the listeners, I've also gotten a vitamin D shot before when I've gotten
Ah,
really low, and that's
okay.
just when they're available, it's just a quick way to get started
Good.
again. So what are your thoughts on that?
Before I answer that, I want to say this too, because you said yours is in the 80s, mine is in this like 65. And I want the listeners to know that everybody's body obviously is different.
Yes.
And you being in Florida helps to keep it and maintain it at a higher level. And then depending on what time of the year it is. So someone asked me, why is my vitamin D fluctuating and I'm still taking the same amount? Because different times of the year happen, different things happen. Also, however, if you notice that your behavior is the same, but your levels are dropping, then that could mean an absorption challenge. And that you want to look into some gut, gut issues. You always want to pay attention. That's why it's important to get your levels done and keep checking your blood work yearly so that you are on top of any changes. I also want to answer the question about taking too much. Toxicity is when your vitamin D is around 150, which is not common but can happen. During the pandemic, some people were over aggressive with it. And that's when we saw if we did see too much in that space because people were doing more than they should. And then, as far as you said that you had taken the vitamin D shot, an infusion, because was it that it was so low that you wanted to get
That
a
was,
macro?
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was another time. And where I go for
Mm-hmm.
hormones, they offer that.
Off of
And they
that.
just offered it and it was available. And so I jumped on it just to
God.
kind of took the easy way out to get it jump started again.
So when a vitamin D is so low, and not everywhere the shots are available, most of the time, depending, then it's like a mega dose supplement pill. But if you are lower and you wanting to get a mega dose, then the infusion or the shot is fine if it's available. It's not available everywhere and all the time.
Right.
Yeah, and there's different ways to get your vitamin D, and then there's different forms of vitamin D. So there's D3 and D2. D3 is more effective in holding its charge, meaning that when you're taking D3, it's going to keep your levels sustained longer. And then D2 is a plant-based form. Most of your supplements are going to be D3. And then from food is where you will get the D2. Then when it comes to supplementations, you can have chewables, you can have soft gels, you can have tablets, you can have liquids. There's all these different types that you can get. And now there's also D3 in a vegan form. And that is a newer discovery. All in the past, the D3 has always been produced through lanolin, which is extracting it out of the wool of sheep. And now, for those who are vegan and want to go the route of a plant-based source, then now there is a vitamin D source through algae. They're both great. It's just it really becomes a preference. So for us, like our D3 vegetarian vegan form, it's a chewable tablet. And then our other one is a capsule, right? So it just comes down to like a preference, but there's all these different vitamin D personalities or things that you can take to make sure it fits who you are, including if you wanted to get a shot. When I heard you say a shot, I was thinking I would not get a shot. I don't like a shot of anything, right? Like you were saying, because it was offered and it was available. And I thought if they offered it to me, I would say, no, give
No,
me a
thank you.
personality. Like, don't give me a shot of any kind.
I know I took that easy way out at the expense of having a shot, which I don't love either, or blood work, but I'm very blessed to have somebody who does it very well. And I feel like I'm lucky to have someone like that. And I'm
Yeah.
excited. You mentioned a couple things that made me think of another question. First of all, I'm going to go back to how you talked about it helps with mood because I own a practice with two therapists, mental health therapists,
Ah,
and vitamin D is something that we do recommend for people who are dealing with mental health and not keeping up with their vitamins, minerals, eating well. And
mhm.
again, supplementation sometimes is really necessary, as we know. But you also talked about absorption and the gut. And we do see when people come in and give us their numbers, we're just checking in on them. We're not acting like doctors. We just want to make sure that they're keeping on top of it. The people who are they kind of self-confess, "Yeah, I eat, junk food. I eat a lot of sugar." We do find that they're not necessarily absorbing it. But I also, if you have any comments on that, alcohol other things that they're having, but if you could also kind of give us the explanation of D3 that's combined with K2.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for asking that. Let me about the nutrition part. Nutrition is so powerful, what we feed ourselves overall. And I understand it is not always easy. I think of the journey of eating and being healthy, like being on a mechanical bull, trying to stay on. Like sometimes we can ride it and sometimes we fall off. So the better that we eat, the better that our body behaves, the better that we can absorb nutrients and so forth. So it is such a necessary part of who we are or who we want to be is to making sure that we're getting that nutrition. And I always say to folks, because I can give you a list of what not to eat, but more so, I like to tell you what to eat because no one wants to go through this life not having some pleasure in their food. But as women in midlife, there's just certain nutrients that we want to make sure that we're getting through the food. And if we ever have time, and you study this as well, so we won't necessarily go down that route, but just making sure that daily we're feeding our body the nutrients that it needs. I always say this is just one like a quick tip to say to someone, have a big, huge, leafy green, powerful salad before you have your fried chicken and french fries or whatever it is, right? Just make sure your wine or whatever it is, your pleasure food, if you could at the very least make sure that you've given your body the nutrients first and then proceed if you must. K2. K2 doesn't get talked about enough, Kim. I think if you were to go in the stores and you look at supplements for vitamin D, you see all of them, but I don't believe you see K2. And for us as women in midlife, K2 becomes even more important. I'm going to explain what it does and then who should not have it. So K2 is a vitamin that helps to direct. So let me say this. It helps to direct calcium, that dietary calcium that is in our blood. So our dietary calcium, it's trying to go somewhere. It wants to go to our bones. If it's left out in the wild, it may go in other places. It may go in the heart or places that we don't want it to go. That K2 with the vitamin D helps that calcium get to where it needs to go. So the calcium that's in our bloodstream, it helps put it in our bones and steer it away from places in our body that it doesn't need to be. So they work together synergistically. A lot of people don't know that. Who would not take K2? You would not take K2 if you're on a blood thinner because it can interfere with what the blood thinner is designed to do. You will also not take K2 if you are have kidney disease or on kidney dialysis. Those are reasons why you would not take it. I also say if you are going to take anything that you have never had before, because there's listeners that have never taken D3 with K2, you would start off with the lower dosage, even if you know that you need 5,000 IUs of vitamin D. My recommendation is always to start off with half of that for at least a week, just to make sure that your body is okay with that. Because anytime you're doing something new, you don't know it and it doesn't know you. And so you want to make sure that you and the K2 and the D3 are all good friends, right? It's not common, but it has happened where I've heard a person say, oh, I didn't feel good, or it made my mouth taste metallic, or whatever the case may be. So always just start off at a lower level and then go to where you desire to go. But K2 is very, very powerful. There's K1 is more abundant in leafy greens, and we get that from food. And then K2 is the one that we would be lagging, and that's the one that is good to supplement with your D3.
That is so good. So,
Yeah.
what if someone is having we know, like you said, I love your phrase of, in menopause, our bodies are kind of misbehaving anyway. But are there any signs that women have that maybe they are vitamin D deficient? Or is that just something we need to check for in the blood test, knowing that there's so many different things going on?
So there are, I laugh at that because there are signs that we are low, but those same very signs are also signs that we're in perimenopause or menopause. I'm going to tell you what the signs are so that you are aware of it. But as women in midlife, we really just need to pay attention to all of the things. I'll tell you the signs, but if your vitamin D is sufficient or doing well, but you still have some of these other signs, now you know, okay, it's not my vitamin D, right? Now I can figure out then, okay, it's not this, then it must be something else. And that's helpful. We can, because with our bodies, it's a lot going on. And there's a time where we're just doing process of elimination. Okay, it's not this. So then it could be that. So signs of low vitamin D include being tired, but that's also signs of perimenopause and menopause, right? But it's a sign of being tired, your hair loss, aches and pains, muscle weakness, moodiness, getting sick all the time. And yeah, those are the main ones. So if you feel that way and you get your vitamin D levels checked, and I've seen it so many times, that puts a remedy to those feelings, and then you can be happy again at that juncture, right? I mean, people, there's an example of a lady that I know, a friend of mine actually. No one could figure out for whatever reason why she didn't feel good, why she was having these aches and pains and this mysterious, all the things, and they would test everything but the vitamin D until she talked to me. And I'm like, wait a minute, did you check her vitamin D? As soon as they figured out her vitamin D was like 9 or something terrible. Uh-huh. And then
Wow.
yeah, and then she restored it and then she started feeling better. So I always look at what's the low hanging fruit while we're investigating what is going on. Check your vitamin D, and then you'll know, okay, that's up to par, and then you can move on. But those are some of the symptoms that we experience when our vitamin D is low. I'm going to say that honestly, so my company has been producing supplements for a long time. And it wasn't until the pandemic when I really started to thoroughly understand what vitamin D was doing or not doing. And those folks that struggled the most with the pandemic situation, I'll call it that, there was a correlation with their vitamin D. And it blew my mind because I wondered really why, since it's so easy to get, it's so inexpensive, why that was not talked about as much as it could have been and should have been. And that's when I started to take it up as a topic because it always kind of had been a stepchild on our shelf. It's like it was ancillary. And then I just really moved it to the forefront. And especially now that I am in that menopause space and I understand what it does for us, I'm thinking it could save us so much money and so much time and feelings and anguish if we but knew. And that is why I'm on a mission, right, for all the women that I know and that you know at this point to make sure their vitamin D is up to par. So I appreciate this topic for that.
I appreciate this so much. And you said this is so important. It's the low hanging fruit for
Yeah.
all the things that we're going through in perimenopause. And I feel blessed. I am looking back on it with 2020 vision now.
Mhm.
Hindsight's always 2020.
It is. It
And
is.
knowing that, the symptoms are just we know they could last anywhere from a small amount of time to many, many years. And if you can just start going through the list with the easier stuff first,
Yes.
like the vitamin D, and like you
Yeah.
said, it's just a test, but it's advocating for yourself too to get the blood work that you need. And when you go and that's not on there, asking to make sure that it is. And do you remember the app Clubhouse?
I
Was
do. Is it
out
gone?
dur I don't know if it's still there, but
Oh,
during the pandemic, I was on
yeah.
Clubhouse and I was in a group, And one person actually kind of spearheaded pushing everyone in the group to get their vitamin D tested. And I thought that was fantastic. And it really
Yeah.
brought it to the forefront for me too, because like you said, we have all these supplements and having, just they get pushed around my counter. And what am I taking today? There are a few that I will
Mhm.
take every single day, and that is one of them. And
Yeah.
I would love to ask you too, because of all that, and supplements, by definition, are supplemental to our nutrition plan. And I would love for you to give people tips. One, like we talk a lot about food. We do talk a lot about nutrition on the episodes, but I love to hear everybody else's version of it. So, what are the like foundational basics, must haves that we can add in? And like you said, we're adding in, we don't want to deprive, we don't want to take everything out. But let's talk about that. And then we'll come back and talk about maybe some easy ways to remember to take those supplements.
So, is your question must have foods or must have supplements?
Let's start with foods. Let's get a few of those in there, mix it
Yeah.
up here.
So these are some powerful foods that every woman in midlife should have on her plate and the plates of those that you love on a regular basis and in no particular order. So leafy greens, very, very powerful. So your spinach, your kale, your is it Brussels? Like your leafy greens. Got it. So your big leafy greens, you want to get that in. Very nutrient packed, and it does a lot of things. Your berries, so your blueberries, your blackberries, your berries. That's another power packed food. All of the foods they're working together synergistically in the body for our greater good. We'll just leave it at that. Your omegas, so that is an essential fatty acid, which is we talked about the cells and how our cells need different nutrients, and the omegas are the lubrication, is the oil for the cells. So, like, you wouldn't drive your car without oil. You shouldn't drive a car without oil. It's the same. Your cells need those omegas. Everybody hears about salmon, so you can get it from fatty fish. But if you do not eat fish, then you also can get it in algae, from algae. Another food source would be herbs. So your different herbs like your dill and your basil. And, what can I think about herbs? Is that the brain fog? I don't
Yes, it's like
know.
dill. I think, yeah,
Oregano.
we're used to
Your
that. Yes, just all those beautiful herbs. Think of your herb box that you can chop up,
correct.
and cilantro
The
and all
cilantro.
those. And those give I love that you mentioned those, because in addition to the nutrients, they just give that extra little power punch of flavor
Sure.
too.
Yeah. And I'm actually growing herbs in my house, like right behind us. And then fruit. So I separated fruit from berries, though you could, in theory, combine them, but their berries are more powerful with the cancer fighting and the antioxidants. And then we have our fruit. And then lastly, your nuts and seeds. Specifically, flaxseed is what I want to say for us women, that ground flax really does help so many levels as our hormones are changing. It's a powerful seed. If you're going to use flax, then I recommend that it is ground and that you keep it in the refrigerator for freshness. And it's something that I add to a smoothie every day. And pumpkin seeds are also a phenomenal seed. I mentioned I am a nutritionist, and I am love to just have so much knowledge on supplements. So I have a love for both, right? The actual food side. And I love to help people figure out, okay, exactly what they should have in their shopping carts and on their menu daily to get the most out of this thing called life with as it relates to food. And then supplements. Thank you for asking that question. There's so many supplements out there, and it's so confusing about what we should and should not have and take. And there's a lot of noise. So, what I like to say, there's just only a few supplements that I recommend across the board. And then the other ones are situational. And so the ones that I recommend across the board, well, the two that I recommend across the board would be your omegas. I take a plant-based omega and then the vitamin D. Now, I also take encapsulated produce. So I'm going to skip over that one because that's not available everywhere for everybody. But the the omegas, the vitamin D, and then of course I take the encapsulated produce. And then I say, stop right there. Because then people say, well, do I need B12? Do I need magnesium? I don't know if you need that because let's have your blood work drawn and then decide or know, then you'll know what you're deficient. Magnesium is very, very powerful for us for many reasons. There's many different forms of magnesium. I've created a plan, a nutrition plan where it's power packed on the food side. And I'm always saying, okay, let's get these nutrients in through food as best that we can, then test our blood work, test how we feel, and then we know what to add on. Opposed to what a lot of folks do is they're just taking things, they don't know why, they're maybe not consistent, they don't take it long enough, they're just taking what someone told them that they should take, and then there's just a lot of confusion. So I only recommend the few that I mentioned. Then we're saying get your blood work run, and then if you are deficient in B12 because you're not eating enough of the sources of B12, the egg yolks or the meats and so forth, then you might need to supplement with that. The other thing, though, are adaptogenic herbs. So like ashwagandha and rhodiola and all of those things. As we get older with this menopause journey, our ability to manage stress and cope changes with that declining estrogen. And then in some cases, some women can be supported by adaptogens. I personally drink lion's mane tea, but I just try not to overwhelm folks with a lot of things at one time. It's like my approach is like 1, 2, 3. Do this first, assess, then do the second, then do an assessment, so that it's just like we know what's working. Because not another thing is if you're taking too many things at once, you don't know what's working. You don't know what's
That's
helping.
true. And
Yeah.
assessment and then consistency too, because when we add too much in, we get overwhelmed and we do nothing.
We do nothing.
And I love how you kind of stop and say, wait, let's just stop here for now and do this. Those are beautiful examples of some gorgeous vitamin and mineral filled food that we can add in. And I love how you talk about the ground flaxseed. I
Yes.
forgot about that, and I really appreciate you brought that up. And I'm curious, I would love for you to give the listeners some tips, making maybe like 3 tips. You can bring up things you've already said or anything new, but I'd love it if one of them were if you have any great way for people to remember to take their supplements or take their vitamin D every day.
How to remember. Well, I'm going to tell you how I remember, and then I can give you some other tips. So I make a smoothie every single day, and it's become habitual to me. So in that smoothie, or with my smoothie routine, my water just came on from my produce. I really am growing leafy greens in my house,
That's
but
great.
it's part of my routine. And I remember because it's what I do routinely in the morning. So I do not forget. And I put it right in front where I can see it. That's what I do. Right. So other people, they may not have a consistent routine that they do in the morning. So for that, I would say if you're brushing your teeth, and most people do that every day, if you put a post-it note or put your supplements there where you have your water near. And let me just say this too about vitamin D, depending on the form, sometimes it needs to be taken with food. And that just really depends on if it's has a carrier oil with it or not. But so if you can take it without food, then you could put it in your bathroom if you can't remember. And then in some cases it needs to be taken with food. So then you put it with the food that you know that you're going to grab the most, how to take them. Yeah. But it's people forget about supplements all the time. The other thing is our vegan vitamin D. I just like the way I chew it. So it just makes me happy to chew it. So I actually want it because I like to chew it. So I don't forget about it because I'm like, I just like to chew, but
That's
that's just
great.
yeah. That's just me. So those are the tips that I have. Or you can set an alarm, a daily alarm that goes off every day at 8 in the morning to remind you to take it. That's a good one. So an alarm. Those
Absolutely.
are the tips that I have. Yeah.
You are full of wonderful information today, Robin. I really appreciate you sharing so much information, not just about vitamin D, which is so important, but really why we need it, how we're going to feel if we don't have it, all the food items that you brought up that we can be eating that are just we can make them so yummy also. And I appreciate just sharing also the you have such a great way in analogies, sharing with us, like even in the beginning, getting on that that Bronco horse, and sometimes we stay on our meal plan and our eating plan, and sometimes we're off. And so it's great. You give people so much grace to learn and to move forward. And I would love for everyone to find you. So please tell everyone where they can find you. And listeners, when Robin is talking about these supplements, she knows a lot because she has supplements, and I hope you'll share that too.
So thank you so much. So let me start this in saying that just recently, just out of necessity, I created the Necessary Nutrition Pause Plan, which is where I help women in midlife who are confused about what to eat and what to do to mitigate signs and symptoms related to perimenopause, menopause. And I want to repeat their words, what to eat and what to do, because one part of it is the nutrition, but the other part is, well, what to do otherwise. And there's combined with what to eat and what to do. I know for sure that you will have less symptoms and less complications, and your journey will be better. And I'm comfortable with saying that for many, many reasons, but that is what the pause plan is designed to do. You can find that at necessaryvitamind.com. That's our easiest website because it's just necessaryvitamind.com. And you can find all about our vitamin D and all about the pause plan there. And then I'm on social, Instagram at Nessie Nutri. N is in Nancy, E, S is in Sam, S is in Sam, Y, N is in Nancy, U, T is in Tom, R, I. So Nessie Nutri is where you can find me on Instagram. Necessaryvitamind.com is our website. And we'd love to connect with you and love to be your vitamin D supplier. We also do have a plant-based protein, and then of course the pause plan. The last thing I want to say is that it's important that because there's so much to know and so much to learn, whenever someone is in our ecosystem, they get continuing education. So every quarter, we bring in an expert for all of our customers, have an opportunity to come on live with this expert and discover more about that topic and ask them questions. And depending on when this episode is coming, we have a topic related to the pelvic floor. And because as women in midlife, our pelvic floor, people don't even think about their pelvic floor, but we need that to be strengthened. Personally, because I had a weakened pelvic floor, and I wish I could tell you that broccoli would fix that, but that's not true. And so because I had a weakened pelvic floor, I had frequent urination, and I was able to fix that through knowledge. And so that's what we want our community to be able to have access to, is that information. And it all comes complementary with being a part of a customer in any way with us. I think I said that all. I hope
I think
said
that's great. We're going to put everything in the show notes.
yeah.
We're going to put the website and social media, and the website. Everyone just make sure you check that out and check out the pause plan. And I love that you have these experts. And yes, the pelvic floor in midlife is a thing, especially if you're trying to do jump roping or running or anything like that.
Yeah. Or if you're just trying to live your regular life and not go
Yes.
to the bathroom all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Robin, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate all the information you're sharing with us. And I really look forward. There's so much more I'm sure that we can talk about.
Yeah.
And thank you again for
Well,
spending some time with us today.
thank you so much for having me. Peace and blessings, everybody.
Yes. And everyone, nourish your entire life and give yourself grace today. That's it. Thank you so much for tuning into the Emotional Eats podcast, the podcast that's here to help you feel amazing, strong, energetic, and healthy holistically in your mind and your body. But my guest and I also want to help you build great habits to help you with long-term mental and physical health so that you can lean into aging in a very positive and strong way. Check out my website, kimhines.com, and please come see me on Instagram at kimhineshealth. That's where I leave tips for healthy life, healthy body, healthy relationship with food, and I also am there to encourage you, and I love to hear from you. So tag me and let me know what you like about the show and what you want to hear more about. Check out the show notes for all the details. Make sure to rate and review the podcast. And until our next time together, nourish your entire life and give yourself grace today.